And I want to start with some thank yous, and starting with thank you to the Childs Park YMCA and Deborah Big Saunders. Please give us a round for being our gracious host today, in addition to being a CAC member who really understands the importance of this training. She took this training over in Tampa and made sure that the CAC had a lot of the information that Carol shared there, but thought it important that we bring it back to the community and have it be offered right here in our own backyard. So again, thank you for that, Deborah. I also want to start with thanking our one city council person that's here right now. I think we will be joined by others later, but thank you, Councilman Cornell, and everybody. Steve Cornell. We know that we have several advocates on the council for CRA, and we're happy about that. So we want to make sure that we let them know how much we appreciate that. Also, the CAC members that are in the house, we have several. If you would stand, I'd just like to say your names as you stand up. It's being held out in the community. So we really want to encourage you to spread the word. Because we're going into our CRA application process, we want as many people as possible to come and ask questions. We want as many people as possible to come and learn about the process so that folk are ready to apply for the dollars that are available during the process. So again, if you would help carry the water on that, we really appreciate it. So in addition to bringing Carol here today, I want to first turn it over to Rick Smith. Those of you who, he knows so much about this, and you know, as a former banker, I have a little bit of knowledge, but I'm always going to him and trying to figure out that policy side of it. And I'm so into the dollars and cents around the development and the commercial piece, and particularly for small business owners, haven't done that as well. But we know that we have a wealth of knowledge in Rick, and I just want to make sure the community understands the wealth of knowledge that we have. I talk about this often, that our structure here is different in that the dollars that we have in our TIP right now, if we didn't have this structure, all of that money would be going to staff. Nothing would be hitting the streets this first round. Because there are several CRA boards throughout this state who have a separate entity from the city. And in order to run those, staff has to be paid for. So the City of St. Pete staff in economic development is carrying two jobs, if you will, in administering the CRA, so that it will allow our community to have the dollars hit the street. So keep that in mind, and I think Carol will talk about that difference a little bit more today, but we want to make sure that everybody understands that. When you see those really pretty CRAs with the, you know, in other areas, it took them several years to get to a certain point, and that overhead of staff, business owners in the room who know and understand, is very expensive. So we just didn't want to have that happen here in St. Petersburg in our first starting out in our initial phases, to be able to put hundreds of thousands of dollars towards staff when it can actually go into the corridors. So again, we'll throw that over to Carol and let her develop that later, but Rick Smith?
25, 30 years, and it took a while to get to where it is now. So what we're trying to do is kick off the programs, get some activity started, get some momentum moving. And Carol is here, Carol Westmoreland with the Florida Redevelopment Association. I've known Carol for probably over a decade.
Guess what? Up in Tallahassee, I keep hearing the same questions and the same challenges and the same, in a good case scenario, solutions. So what I'm telling you is based on what I hear from our members, both cities, redevelopment agencies, planning departments, counties. There's a lot of people in this state working really hard to make redevelopment work in their communities. And I know the big question is, what is the difference? What is the key? Well, there's not one thing, obviously. And so sometimes people, I think, stand up and look around and they say, wow, we did that? How did we do it? So they don't even know when it's successful. But you do have, as a handout, you're the advisory committee. But you are not just an advisory committee. Have you ever heard anybody say, we're just an advisory committee? So we really, can't do. The reason you're here is because you can do, and the city's empowered you. So I would suggest that you are a committee that is probably going to do the bulk of the work, and hopefully recommend to the city council, you know, up or down, and they're going to say, great job, we feel good about what you're talking about, and we feel great about taking this vote.
Carol, question.
Sure.
I didn't interrupt you.
No, please,
I guess-
I forgot to say, please
Yeah.
do interrupt me.
I wonder if there's a distinction here between who are committee members
Yes.
here and who are residents that are coming to learn more about the CRA. We're
Okay.
a combination of things in the audience.
All right.
So the city staff, et cetera, et cetera. Is that okay to ask that question?
Of course. But what I'm saying, and thank you for pointing that out, if you are on the committee, okay, these words would apply to you, and if you're not, I think it's helpful as a member of the community to understand the role of the committee, the role of the citizens, volunteers, and the role of the city. Because it can get confusing. I mean, government, we think government is clear, and it's not. So, I'm going to be focusing on basically Community Redevelopment Agency, because that's where the money's coming from. That's how you got created.
Just a question to follow up with that, and I think that was the reason why I was so in for having the community attend the same CAC training, because believe it or not, we're getting the same training just like you are. This is the first time we're actually being involved in this. This is the first time the city has taken on this, but this particular type of committee. So I think the more, you can never have too much information. So if everybody's on the same page, we're hearing and learning the same thing, I think that'll make the transition in the process a lot easier.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you clarify as we go along exactly what the committee's powers are to affect change?
Yes, I will. And if I don't, you keep me honest, okay? Art?
It's, I think, been made clear to us as a committee that we're advisory.
Right.
We looked at proposals that came in for some properties, and I believe there was at least one that the committee advised against, and it was approved. So
Right.
I'd
Because
like to know what the
you
real definition of advisory is.
you advise, and that means you do not have the power to approve or unapprove.
Regarding what he's talking about.
Right.
That was not, that's part, not, we did provide supervisory, but it's a project not funded through CRA dollars. That's, I think would be one of the distinctions. They were nice enough to ask our advice on it, but that was an instance where we really were advisory.
Right. Well, you're going to be advisory always. You know, you just don't have that power. And like I said, though, that doesn't mean that you don't have power. You just don't have the final authority up or down and to, expend those kinds of monies. All laid out. So when I'm talking about redevelopment today, I'm talking about the use of the CRA dollars under Chapter 163, Part 3. And then we cannot talk about the use of dollars unless we talk about what is in the redevelopment plan. Because as you probably know, if it's not in the redevelopment plan, you cannot spend money on it from that CRA trust fund. So the plan is important, the plan can be amended, it's very flexible, etc. No, wait, that was once a snake pit. And if not for redevelopment, that would still be a snake pit, as they call it. So the key with CRAs is the history that basically you as a entity enjoy for your community, but also a history of the law. 1969, I wasn't even born, but that law was passed. Why? Because everybody started moving out of downtown. It was the great American dream. All these people were coming to Florida. If you were here then, you remember that these areas were nothing back then. So what happened? Suburban, all this corridor redevelopment where services were harder to provide because people were spread out. But by God, they sure did demand those services. Police and fire and schools and everything else. What do you mean? I moved to the hinterlands, but why don't I have all the things that we had downtown? I need shopping, I need everything. So what did city governments do and county governments? They complied. They said, we've got to grow, we've got to get this going. Let's fund something called redevelopment to support our downtown for a part of our community so that it doesn't die and atrophy. So that all is changed to allow cities in Florida to do anything by their own selves that wasn't illegal, immoral, or fattening. In other words, that wasn't already against the law. So instead of the city having to go, and back in '78 there weren't that many cities, to the legislature saying, can we please have a civil service system? The legislature was getting tired of that. They said, you know what? You go knock yourself out, you do whatever programs you need to do, you put anything into place you need to do. As long as there's no state law against it, local law, whatever, you can pass that law. So this gave cities huge flexibility in being able to determine their own destiny. But it also has another edge to that sword. People think, well, you're a city, just do it. And when you say, well, but there's some laws there and there's some things and past practices, then they say, well, wait a minute, I don't understand. You're supposed to have home rule. You're supposed to be able to do anything and fix anything.
In some cases, you know, a local company will want to expand and expand in this area and create 300 jobs, and, you know, I'm all ears, and I know the community would be all ears. The key to that, which somebody mentioned, in my opinion, is to make sure that we link that job creation to the residents of the CRA, and the CAC has been very clear about that. And I can assure you that that is going to be the case related to the Commerce Park as we move forward on that. And then on the other hand, I totally agree that, I mean, the worst thing is, I mean, you want to do it from the bottom up, the greatest extent possible. So revitalization, as we're talking about it today, is a primary goal. Wherever we can work with you, the residents of this community, and investors in this community, businesses in this community, to strengthen them, and we're working with a number of them now, you know, to do that, because that we want them to benefit from the CRA and the growth that come from within. And we also want to work with our stakeholders, institutions, religious and otherwise, that also have the capacity to grow and make investments. So I'm going on too long, but
Just to be quick too, and again, I have to apologize to everyone. I'm headed to a memorial service, but I want to make sure that we talk about that there's a lot of historical implications that we aren't necessarily always upfront with. We know that here in the city of St. Petersburg, there's a lot of distrust about the way these things were handled in the past. Let's just be honest. But what I can tell you, and that's all CRA. So St. Pete is not unique to this state. So what we have to understand is that if in fact we are ready to try to do it a new way and for a new day, let's just all come together and say, we know what happened in the past, but we have opportunity right now to hold this administration's feet to the fire, and I'm a part of that and I commit to that. So does Alan, the mayor, the deputy mayor, and we are going to do everything in our power to make sure that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. So that's my exit, and I'm going to my grandfather's memorial.
Group, how are you going to move together to actually make something happen? When you look in the rearview mirror, well, what did you do? Are you going to be proud of it? Are you going to be satisfied that you did everything you could? And are you still going to be talking to people? Because it's not an agreement, it's a process. Some of our CRAs have done this. I recommend it. But you probably already have done something like this. But it really helps. Guiding principles. Don't they sound lovely? Don't they sound non-threatening? Don't they just sound wonderful? But maybe you step back and say, do we want one guiding principle? It's kind of like a mission statement. UPS, Brown, what is it? My sister would kill me. Brown travels the world or something like that. Yes. One sentence is what these companies have. 3 words. They don't keep it lengthy. So this might be too much for you. But the guiding principle maybe should be vision and planning.
group interested in revitalizing the South St. Petersburg area for the last, I don't know, 7 to 10 years. It is a informal nonprofit, private nonprofit. And then you have the Citizen Advisory Committee, which was appointed by the City Council to provide guidance on various redevelopment issues facing South St. Petersburg and the redevelopment plan. The two come together because their interests are similar and the areas of activity are similar, but they're functionally different and they have different areas of authority. The basis for the CRA plan. It helped to spur the creation of it, and we have similar issues that were guiding it, but by no means was it the foundation of the CRA plan.
Well,
That's what I'm
and
voting.
one of the things that should be pointed out is one of the things that
That get approved. So if you've got that kind of time, focus on both balls. You're relatively new, but I can tell you that CRAs, and you know this, around the state, are as long as 60 years. That's how old I am. That's a long time. So, can you afford to recreate wheels? Can you afford to put all your eggs in one staffer? And then you retire? And OMG, then what do you do? So you've got to write everything down. Why did staff do that? There's a memo. Well, because of this policy and that policy, put it in writing. Have a paper trail. Do internal memos. Put questions in writing. Get answers in writing. So that you're not going to remember all this over the years, but you got files and you got people who keep those for you. Well, we did that last time. That's why we're doing it this time. Well, is that a good idea? Yeah, okay. That makes sense. And those are what your auditors are also going to be looking for, by the way. How did you come to that decision? They did themselves, right? As the CRA board. So when they meet, they say hello. And then to themselves, they say hello again, because they meet as a CRA separately, other than as the city. But they're the same people. So talk about confusing to the average citizen. What? You're a CRA and you can't use this money because it's not in the plan. But if you were with the city, who you are with the city, you could use that money for anything. Does that get confusing to people? It's like, well, how come you're restricted in using the money when you're a CRA? But you're not restricted when you're working with the role of the city commission, council. But that's an important distinction, and trust me, in one city, they had a meeting as a CRA, they adopted a contract, agreed to pay it. In between their city council meeting, the Broward Inspector General came back and said, you have committed gross mismanagement of public dollars because you have approved a contract as the inappropriate body. Same people, but legally, they didn't do good. Was it all over the headlines? Yes. But things like that, that people misunderstand. Even city attorneys, probably the city attorney was mortified that he or she didn't catch that. Like, wait a minute, you can't vote on that now, you gotta reassign. So what do we say? We try to tell cities, counties. The cities and counties are the only ones that can set up CRAs. Have your meetings separate. That way people don't get confused. Oh, we're gonna adjourn now and become the CRA. And then after that, we take that vote, then we're gonna become a city. But, you know, but that's more expedient, and city clerks will tell you, hey, you know, you wanna conserve city money, that's the best way to do it. But be aware that just because the same person is talking, they might not be talking in the same role. That's like this.
Is that right?
No.
Okay,
That, I'm talking about the city's role.
okay.
Because the city has by resolution, through public input, they announce we're gonna create a CRA, and that's a public hearing. Public input in that.
Anybody, general public, anybody.
That's right. It has to be publicly noticed, et cetera, et cetera. Now, publicly, they also by resolution say we're gonna have another hearing and we're gonna appoint ourselves as the CRA board, and that's been done. Then they have another hearing for an ordinance to say we're gonna set up a CRA trust fund. This is all city council. Then they have to approve the plan, the city council. So that's another hearing. So when I say that there's been a public commitment to people by the city council at the very minimum, that we're gonna take your money, we're gonna put it in a trust fund, and we're gonna use it for your benefit and get rid of blight. That's a big commitment.
Just to also respond to Carl's question, is our local CRA.
And this is why they get to be the big dog and vote up or down, finally, because they get all the fun of answering to citizens why the CRA is not or is successful. Okay, now you'll get your share of that, but ultimately, they are going to get unelected over that, or maybe not. But they're concerned, they are very concerned. They are a city council for the whole city, right? So they've got to be very careful about the expenditure of money in all these 4 CRA districts, because in the world of they live in, that money could be used for general revenue. They're putting it aside, and they're trusting that it's going to make a change in different areas, but by God, when people from some other area of the city say, why can't we have a new library, or a new park, or a new playground? Well, we don't have it. But look at all this money you have in the CRA. Why don't you take some of there? So in some people's mind, it is all about money, and they got to answer those questions.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please. Oh, really?
I'm the watchdog for it was a discussion about the CRA money. And what I need you to clarify for me, we had a CRA that was other part, downtown and everything like that. Then that's when they came up with Vision 2020, the CRA, and Commissioner Kenwell and everything got together to do this. My question that I need to know is, the CRA funds for downtown, is that totally separate? Is whatever money they collect for this new CRA, is that totally separate?
Yes.
Okay, because I heard one council member saying about the money that we would be land banking and everything, but then he was talking about doing something that would be for downtown. And I was wondering, one pot.
It is definitely not all one pot ever, okay? Each of those districts have their own pots, their own trust funds. And it's against the law to use money for one and the other, unless, there's always an unless, there's an interlocal agreement or something to that effect where it's publicly been decided to do so.
I got a question about drawing the lines of the CRA. When boundaries are created
Right.
for the CRA,
Right.
how is it that you're permitted to go into that CRA and take something out of that CRA to be a part of another CRA, i.e. Tropicana Field? Tropicana Field sits right in the heart of Southside CRA. But the boundaries, what I'm understanding this administration is going to do is to carve Tropicana Field and the development of that out into the downtown CRA.
Yeah, only Rick can answer that for you.
Give you a little history lesson. The Tropicana Field.
We can hear you.
Okay. Tropicana Field was originally part of the gas plant redevelopment area, which was designated as a blighted area back in 1978. Probably by 1983, the city incorporated into the in-town redevelopment area, what we know as the downtown redevelopment district, the gas plant area, because of the need to build the baseball stadium. So that was about 35 years ago when all of that originally happened. In terms of the discussion about, taking away Tropicana Field and putting it on to the Southside CRA, I haven't been privy to that discussion, and technically it would be difficult to do. I think the fact that we still have a baseball team there, we don't know what the ultimate disposition of the Rays will be. Will they be on Tropicana Field after 2027? Will they be another portion of Tropicana Field, maybe the eastern part of the parking lot, or will they be elsewhere? Remains open for discussion, and I think it's still a fluid process.
The original boundaries for the CRA was extended over to Central Avenue to have that included in it. Is that true?
That's not true.
These was the original boundaries, and it's never been changed now.
The basis for the CRA, South St. Petersburg CRA, were the Midtown boundaries, Midtown Strategic Planning Area, and the Childs Park Strategic Planning Area. Midtown actually went into Tropicana Field and beyond, up to 2nd Avenue North, but it wasn't a tax increment district. So what we did, we realized that we couldn't annex the downtown, both in-town and in-town west redevelopment areas, so we crafted the boundaries around the interstate to not include the existing downtown tax increment districts.
And isn't the downtown tax increment district term about to expire?
The downtown district will end in 2032. Statutorily, it could go to 2042. City and county reached an agreement 10 years ago to cap it at 2032.
And the in-town west district when?
It's in its first 30 years. It's set to expire in 2020 unless extended. It would have potentially up to another 30 years. That would depend upon City Council, County Commission.
Would the CAC be able to influence what the boundaries are? So could the CAC look at the boundaries and say, we want to recommend that this area?
Absolutely. That would be a large issue facing the redevelopment area, and one of their roles is to provide.
Do is precious time, and don't feel bad about thinking about it that way. Diminishing the recommendation of others. Everybody deserves to have, you know what? That is an idea of yours, and we're going to respect it. Don't be discouraged if the city says, we don't like that idea. But if the city says we don't like that idea all the time, then you might need to have a conversation. Maybe you're not doing what they're thinking that you're supposed to do.
But in the planning process, when you say a city council member or a council or commission that says, we don't like your idea, don't you think that should be followed by some justification? Because each individual has their own opinion. But is that also the value of having a plan? If something is presented from the community that is consistent with a strategic plan, and then you have council people that say, oh, we don't like that idea, should that not be followed by some supporting reason other than we just don't like it?
You just described politics. Yeah. But if you have a goal, you want that ice cream from the county, be realistic. Is it in their budget? Well, then you are almost guaranteed to get it. But you may want to be bolder. You may want to get an ice cream machine from the county. So you don't have to ask them for ice cream next year. You want to make your own ice cream. And by the way, you want still the same amount of money that the ice cream was worth too. So you might as well ask for something big. If you've got a big idea, float it. Anybody here of the planner, Daniel Burnham? Asked the redevelopment guy, what do you think made a difference? These are mixed use, office, retail, restaurants, very successful, and all around that area. This is the area between FAMU and FSU. Things are just popping like crazy. Everything you can imagine, streetscapes, businesses, housing. He said, for 19 years I had a city manager who let me buy land through the CRA. He said, I just went around quietly buying right away, funky parcels that no one wanted to, really pay the money for, but we had to have them. So now we got a Publix coming on Main Street. That's huge for Little Tallahassee. It's a special boutique Publix. because all this stuff is already built, Publix they don't pave the way a whole lot. They want their stuff on a silver platter, just like any other developer. What can you give me? If everything's in place, I'll move there and we'll build. So, we're not recording it. In addition, they established an Inspector General's office. The Inspector General is hired by the county, and they love to pick on CRAs because why? We are easy pickings. We have all these reports that we gotta file, and they're all online. So if one T is not crossed and one I is not dotted, they seize on it, make a big deal out of it, post you on the web saying that there's some problem with your ethics. So when people say CRAs are not accountable, count them. These reports have got to be done every year, and your staff does it. If you go to page 32, what is our sound like?
It's actually page 16, I think, on our,
16?
because we have two on each page.
Yeah, okay. So what are you going to say to people? Are you ready? Say, what are you doing here? Investing in our future? Well, that's kind of wonky. How about we're trying to transform our community. We're trying to get rid of the blight. We have a special trust fund that we can make recommendations on to try to change the way this community looks and feels and operates.
We're trying to prepare the